You've got to have some unusual suspects when you collaborate. And so, like, one of the old ones I use because we worked with Westin Hotels is, when they used to do their customer experience innovations, in some of their focus groups and their brainstorms, they had people or customers that had fired them. And I love that, right? Because if you just ask people that like you, they already like you. If you want to solve a problem, ask the people that hate you. And it was the best. You turned lemons into lemonade. So I think it's not just, how you do it, but who is there.
You wrote a piece, I think this spring, on the importance of curiosity.
Yeah.
And I found that as I was kind of Googling around, and it really jumped out at me because curiosity is one of those capital C words that I just think is so important, right? Like I'm all about, with startup founders I work with, like, what are you falling in love with? You're falling in love with a problem, not a solution. And you're falling in love with being curious about who has this problem and why, and tell me more.
I think entrepreneurs and probably you, right? This is why it jumped out to you, is because you're naturally curious. I mean, entrepreneurs by nature, they are problem solvers. They are naturally curious. They are not rule followers. And so curiosity is just innate to them. But I think it's sometimes hard for founders and entrepreneurs to realize most people, it's not that they're not curious. I think you were born naturally curious, but they don't flex that muscle on a regular basis. Yeah. And it's a real, especially with the rise of technology, being curious has never been more important.
So I 100% agree with that statement. And so let's build on that with like one piece of advice. Like, being curious is important. So what's one thing that people can do for themselves and for the people around them in a large organization to imbue curiosity into their day-to-day work?
Oh, okay. I have a few things. Sorry, I'll be fast.
But like, we'll stack rank it.
Yeah. So my son, he is a senior at UNC, and he's in the business school, and he's an entrepreneurial person, and he studied in this this internship program called IX, where they're 10Xing the entrepreneurs of tomorrow. And one of the big things they teach people is curiosity. And one of the things they do are KDs. Then those are knowledge drops. Mm-hmm. And what happens is at every meeting they invite, and everyone can nominate someone they wish that if they could only have coffee with them or nominate them or like meet their hero, they invite these people for 15 minutes to just come on and say what's on their mind. What's keeping Ian up at night, and what is he curious about? Then they have a few minutes to ask him questions, and that's it. So it's a KD, it's a knowledge drop, and it gives them fresh juice, right?
Yeah.
So that's easy, and people love to talk about themselves. You'd be amazed, like the local professor that you could, or the author. 100%.
Of course.
The other thing is, you and I were talking earlier about how everyone's drowning in meetings, and what's really happening with innovation. And I think that there are a lot of predictive ideas today because people don't have time to think. And I think for people to think, we've got to turn their brains on. I would do more question storming before brainstorming.
Yeah.
And I ask people before a brainstorm, I say, here's the problem we're trying to solve. I want you to give me 5 killer questions that would look at this problem in a different way. And people do it. They are on fire about it. And then we use that as the springboard to brainstorm. But it's a muscle, right? We've got to give them permission to use it.
Those are great ideas. The question storming reminds me of the terrible idea exercise, right? Which I always enjoy. I have so much fun with that. And I have fun seeing how hard it is for people, actually.
Oh, it's so hard. But here's another one that actually lights people on fire. We do a whole bunch of creativity exercises to get people to challenge the status quo. And one is around assumption reversal, right? What's your assumption? Then you turn it on its head. And they brainstorm. And then my favorite thing to do is to pause and say, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you the second half of the assignment. And that's, I need you to only give me ideas that will get you fired. And then people are like, yeah, because you're not going to do the ideas that get you fired. But the idea is, how do you give them stretch? Yeah. And people come up with amazing stuff, right? It's the same concept, but so that's another thing you can do, which is brainstorm and then throw in, give me ideas that get you fired, and see what people come up with. It's great.
All right. So take note, folks. That sounds like a lot of fun. I want to go back 15 years to a role I had in like long lead product planning and be like, let's go. Let's get ourselves
Right?
fired.
But like, I can't
Satya,
even
I'm sorry,
imagine.
bud.
Well, I can't even imagine, right? When I, like you or I started our careers, no, and I was in advertising, right, with the creatives, and that wasn't even a thing, like ideas that get you fired. But I wish it had been, right? What else could we have come up with? It's amazing.
Yeah. So much fun. And it's fun. It's just fun. Like you can write a novel with some of these ideas.
Why not?
All right. So let's talk about one more. There's one more thing I want to hit on because this is just too
Uh-oh.
much fun. It's collaboration,
Oh,
right?
okay.
And I think so to some extent, I think it's obvious to all of us that new ideas, innovation emerge from dense, like collaborative places where lots of ideas collide, right? Big
Yeah.
cities spawn more art than far-flung remote locales, right? Most of the time. So why is it so hard in a corporate environment to collaborate, not just inside your organization, but outside? Why is it so hard to get in touch with the people that are going to spark your ideation, your curiosity, challenge your ideas, bring in new concepts? And what do you do about it? Just a little question for you.
Time, I think one. It's
Yeah.
it's like, oh, most of our day is spent coordinating.
Yeah.
you know, Coordinating the meeting. Oh my God. And so then just by the time you get there, you're exhausted and you haven't had time to think. So that's a big deal. So how could collaboration be better? One, giving people time in advance to think about the problem. Two, giving them the problem in advance. Because by asking people a question, like this is the question we're trying to solve, questions hijack your brain. And
Yeah.
so people will automatically start thinking. That's great. The other thing is, I feel like people, they're not thoughtful enough about who they invite. And what I mean by that is you've got to have some unusual suspects when you collaborate.
Yeah.
So, like, one of the old ones I use because we worked with Westin Hotels is, when they used to do their customer experience innovations, in some of their focus groups and their brainstorms, they had people or customers that had fired them. And I love that, right? Because if you just ask people that like you, they already like you. If you want to solve a problem, ask the people that hate you. And it was the best. You turned lemons into lemonade. So I think it's not just, how you do it, but who's there.
Well, and geez, I'm just thinking of the brands that I've written off in my life and how much I'd like to be in that room, actually helping
Oh,
them
yeah.
brainstorm and innovate. Like I got things to say.
I got things to say. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you want to have a good time? Like, open up a website where people can just bitch, and you're going to get lots of ideas. Like, invite them to a hack. People that hate you, invite them to a hack, and that would be amazing.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure there's at least a couple of those, although I'm blanking on the name, but the employment one, I'll come back to that. But yeah,
Okay.
they're great. Well,
Yeah.
okay. So this is a super fun conversation, but Lisa, you made the mistake of letting me refer to you as a futurist. And
Uh-oh.
so I have to ask you about the future, but don't worry, it's an easy one.
Okay.
What are you excited about? Like, what do you see coming soon that feeds your optimism and your faith in the human spirit?
Wow, that is very cool. Actually, I'll tell you what I think it's around education. And I
Yeah.
think one of the things that's really powerful around I've always wanted to launch Future Think Kids and reinvent schools because I just think we're doing a disservice. We spend so much time in the curriculum teaching history, but we teach nothing about the future
Yeah.
beyond technology. So we get maker spaces and we get stuff like this, and it's kind of like artists again. But creative thinking, critical problem solving outside of the scientist lab, we don't teach. And I think, as futurists, there's something to be able to get those minds earlier than just in grad school. So
Yes.
teaching foresight is starting to become more of a curriculum, kind of with entrepreneurialism in schools. And I find that very, very hopeful because if we can get more critical thinking beyond just science and more to like ideas and entrepreneurialism, I think that's going to bode really well in this age of AI. And we're not just raising employees in schools, we're raising humans. And so we've got to teach them to think better about the future beyond just what job and what college they're going to go to.